Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another live stream. It is Monday. We are going to do a live game review of Everton Day. About the game really, other than Everton were absolutely atrocious. We come back into the game later on and we pulled it back to 3-3 and ultimately we didn't lose the game, and it was all about fitness, and that's all pre-season is. It's just about gaining fitness, etc. Sorry if you've seen some issues there. The computer's having a little bit of a nightmare. It just froze a little bit, so sorry if I cut out. But I wasn't too sure that I was going to do a review, but I thought, no, you know what, we'll do a review. We sit down, we talk about every game, directly after it with the instant match reaction, and then we do a review a couple of days later for every other Premier League game. So I thought, why treat this any different? We're going to sit down and talk about it today. We're also going to talk about some transfer news as well, and how Everton desperately need to improve their squad, because that really wasn't good enough on Saturday. And considering we're only 2 weeks away from the start of the Premier League season, it was quite worrying, to be honest. And considering we're only 3 weeks away from the 3 weeks ago was the last Premier League game of the 2019-20 season, and we performed that badly after only a couple of weeks out. It is worrying. Obviously, Carlo Ancelotti fielded a very strong team for the game against Blackpool. We've seen Premier League players that have played 15-20 games last season involved. The likes of Jordan Pickford, Luca Dean starting the game, Jared Branthwaite, Mason Holgate, with the exception of John Joe Kenny. It was a side that would see it multiple times in the remaining 9 games of the remaining 9 games of last season. Obviously Jared Branthwaite was in there, and Anthony Gordon, 2 players who again had played a couple of Premier League games between them, especially towards the back end of the season. But other than those 3 players, we'll exempt those 2 players and John Joe Kenny. Everybody else was playing consistent Premier League football last season. Everybody else was in and around the team. Everybody else had played at least 15-20 games. And within that first 15 or 20 minutes, every single shot that Blackpool hit at our goal went in. There was mistakes from Mason Holgate, which you don't really see. Jordan Pickford may as well not have been there, because he was a shadow. Every time a ball got hit at him, it went in. So it was really poor. It was atrocious, and it was quite embarrassing. And like I said, it was laughable. And you sit there and you sort of think, how serious do we take this? It's pre-season. It is about fitness. It is about the players sort of getting back into the swing of things. But realistically, in a season like this, where there's been such a short break, and it's a really quick turnover from the last game of last season to the first game of the upcoming season, it's a very short pre-season. There's not a lot of time to wait. There's not a lot of time to get your fitness up. There's not a lot of time to say, oh well, this game's just about getting fitness up. Should we be worried about that performance? Because to be perfectly honest with you, in a normal situation, if Everton had gone 3-0 down in the first game of pre-season, you'd say, right, okay, they haven't played football for 4 or 5 weeks. We won't play again for another 3 or 4 weeks because we've still got a full training camp, wherever we are. Usually the pre-seasons obviously go where, with Everton in typically over the years, would go on a week sort of pre-season camp, if you like, where I think we've been to Austria one year, we went to Switzerland last year. We'd do 5 or 6 days training in that country, and then we'd play one of their local sides at the end of the week, and that would be our first pre-season game of the summer. We'd then go on our pre-season tour, whether it be to Kenya, America, wherever it may be around the world, and we'd play 3 or 4 different teams, play about 5 times, and then we'd come back. We might have another 1 or 2 games, and then we'd start the Premier League season. So that first game of pre-season, usually in the ideal season, in the ideal situation, doesn't mean an awful lot. If you're 3-0 down and you come back to draw 3-3, you probably just say whatever. It's we've still got weeks to go before the Premier League season starts. But in this situation, we literally have 2 more pre-season games, and then we're straight back into Premier League action on the 13th of September. We've literally only just come out of the 2019-20 season 3 weeks ago, being beaten by Bournemouth. So to see the lads put in that type of performance in the first 20 minutes was quite shocking and was quite worrying, in my opinion. Now obviously we pulled it back, we got back into the game. Gylfi Sigurdsson getting 2 goals and an assist. Dominic Calvert-Lewin rising for the first, but it ended up being an own goal. We then won a penalty, which again is arguable, a little bit dubious, but Dom does really well and does what every striker should do, and feels a touch in the box and goes down. Gylfi Sigurdsson steps up, scores the penalty, despite the fact that Dominic Calvert-Lewin and him were having a little bit of a back and forth of who should take it. And then Gylfi Sigurdsson fires in a fantastic free kick, to be fair to him, to make it 3-3 towards the back end of the game. And that was it. And again, you look back on it and you probably sit there and go, in the grand scheme of things, does it mean that much? Probably not. But it's worrying. It is worrying. And if it done anything, if that game shown anything on Saturday, it just highlighted that we desperately need to improve this squad. And we knew that. Look, we knew that there wasn't going to be as much as a change as the back end of last season. We can't sit here and say, oh, it's the same issues as last season, because it's only been 3 weeks since we played Bournemouth and we got battered at Goodison Park against Bournemouth. It's only been 4 or 5 weeks since we played Aston Villa, a team that were literally on border of getting relegated, and they embarrassed us. It's only been, a couple of weeks since those games, and it's only a couple of weeks until we play all of those teams all over again. So we can't really sit here and say, oh, it's the same issues from last season, because of course it is. Nothing's changed. We haven't brought any players in. The lads have only had a 2 or 3 week rest. There's going to be the same issues. The midfield are going to let you down. Defensively, we were poor, which I think was a little bit of a shock, because defensively, certainly in the last 9 games of the season, we were quite solid, even in the games that we didn't do well. In the game against Wolves, the game against Tottenham, the defence wasn't always the big issue. Certainly when Jarrod Branthwaite stepped in, he looked really solid for a player that hadn't played in any Premier League game before. Mason Holgate's had a really solid end of the season. Michael Keane done okay as well. So defensively, we didn't really have massive issues, but on Saturday I thought defensively we struggled. Mason Holgate gave away a couple of absolutely ridiculous balls. He was at fault for the first goal. Jarrod Branthwaite struggled at times as well. But again, it's those same issues that we saw towards the back end of last season, and we all knew we were going to see them on Saturday, because we haven't made any signings. We knew as soon as we seen Tom Davies and Gylfi Sigurdsson line up in the midfield that there was going to be no movement. We knew as soon as we saw Alex Iwobi play on one of the wings that he was going to do pretty much fuck all, because he can't play there. So we knew that all of these eventualities were going to happen, and they did happen. And like I said, if Saturday's shown us anything, for me, you can sit here and you can say, oh, it's about fitness and the result doesn't matter too much, and the result doesn't matter too much. Listen, we could be sitting here at the end of next season and we're not going to look back on us coming back from 3-0 down to draw against Blackpool in the first game of pre-season. We'll either be looking back going, well, that game doesn't matter because we've had a great season, or we've had a shit season. But let's be honest, the Blackpool game has got no involvement in it whatsoever. So the game and the result doesn't matter, but the performance, there's a lot to have taken out of it. And for me, as I put on the title of this live stream, get Allan and Doucoure in as soon as possible. We absolutely need to revitalise that midfield. We need a whole new midfield. And Adam Jones of the Echo put out an article a few days back, and it was a question, it was a tweet, and he asked the question, and he said it was rhetorical because of the response that it got from a lot of Evertonians, but he said, do Everton really need both Allan and Doucoure? And a lot of Evertonians said yes, and some give him stick, and he said that it was rhetorical, and he agrees as well. But I think that game on Saturday became quite evident that Everton need an entire new midfield. And you know what? This is coming off the back of a game where one of our centre midfielders has scored 2 goals and got an assist, but I still thought he had a poor game. And I'm not just picking on Gylfi Sigurdsson. Look, you can't really have too much of a go at him. Ultimately, at the end of the day, he stepped up, he took the penalty, which he was asked to do, and he fired a free kick in the top corner in the last 10-15 minutes of the game, which was a fantastic free kick. He also put a decent ball in for the own goal, but ultimately, in a Premier League game against Premier League opposition, that's Gylfi Sigurdsson's first free kick in an Everton shirt, by the way. In a Premier League game against Premier League opposition, we saw it far too many times last season. He doesn't pop up in those moments consistently enough, and that lack of movement and that lack of getting around the pitch and that standing there and pointing your finger and getting overrun in the midfield, it does not work in the Premier League. We cannot go into next season with that midfield. We just can't. And we saw it on Saturday. We were overrun for large parts of that first 15 or 20 minutes in the midfield. And okay, yeah, Blackpool sort of started to tire very, very quickly, and we got a foothold into the game. But how we can take any sort of excitement from getting a foothold into a game after going 3-0 down in 15 minutes to a League One opposition is beyond me. It really, really is beyond me. But ultimately, again, if this is showing Carlo Ancelotti anything, if it's showing Marcel Brands anything, it's showing that we desperately need to bring players in, because ultimately, look, the first team players that played in that game on Saturday, Alex Iwobi's, Tom Davies, even the likes of Luca Dean, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Moise Keane, they didn't cover themselves in any glory whatsoever. They really, really didn't. And, we've seen some of the younger players come on towards the back end of the game, and I thought the younger players done fantastically well. If I'm being perfectly honest, young Lewis Gibson come on, who obviously spent last season out on loan at Fleetwood, very, very highly rated. Thought he looked really, really solid, very confident on the ball, was picking the ball up, was moving it forward, was, moving other people around to create space for himself. I thought he looked absolutely fantastic. Niels Nkounkou Doucoure, the new young left back, come on and looked, you know, quite composed, blasted the shot over the bar, but other, you know, he looked quite confident on the ball. He wanted it. He wanted to give it out. He wanted to move with it. He wanted to, you know, bring players into the game. We saw Yannick Bolasie come back and play his first game in an Everton shirt for around about 2 years, I think. Same with Mo Besic. Again, both players, you know, had a go, didn't he? Yannick Bolasie had a go. He got forward. He tried to take his man on 100 times, as he usually does. Mo Besic done again. Okay, give away a shocking pass, but nothing came of it. But again, it's very, very clear that we need to bring players in, and we know that. And obviously, there's been a lot of talk around, especially Allan, over the last 24 hours or so, and we'll give a little bit of an update on him in just a second. Doucoure as well, but again, you know, we're 2 or 3 weeks away from the Premier League season. Now, whatever happens, it's become quite apparent that whoever Everton bring in this summer, they're probably not going to have an ideal pre-season with the football club, because ultimately, look, we play Blackburn Rovers this time next week, Tuesday. I believe we play Blackburn Rovers Tuesday night, which, you know, is only a week or so away. We then play Preston on the Saturday, and we then play our first Premier League game of the season the Saturday after. So whoever comes into Everton Football Club, whether it be Allan, whether it be Doucoure, whether it be somebody else, they're probably not going to get a solid pre-season, you know, under Ancelotti in an Everton shirt. They may feature in 1 or 2 games if we're lucky, and if Allan is going to feature, or any player that comes in is going to feature on Tuesday's game against Blackburn, then they ideally need to be in within the next few days or so, ideally by Wednesday, if they're going to be able to come in and settle down. And I've just seen on social media, Alan Mize has just put a tweet out about new rules regarding players coming in and quarantining if they're coming from countries that require that rule, and that rule is in place. So again, that could throw everything in the air. Obviously, Allan coming from Italy, you know, not so much with Doucoure because he's obviously at Watford at the moment. But yeah, you know, again, it was dreadful, wasn't it? It was, and you know, we come back into the game, and okay, you know, Gylfi Sigurdsson had a better game than he's had in quite some time, because he actually had some end product, but it was the same issues. It was midfield were pretty much non-existent. It was the attack were feeding off of nothing, not even scraps, nothing. Moise Keane didn't get any opportunities, started the game, wasn't involved. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, other than the header that he rose for the goal, didn't really get any other opportunities, wasn't really involved. Ellis Sims come on towards the back end of the game, Kyle John come on towards the back end of the game, done okay, but it's I'd be lying if I was to say I wasn't slightly concerned, to be honest with you, because it was a strong side. If it was the youngsters, if Carlo Ancelotti had the set up with the young players and would have been 3-0 down in 10 minutes, I'd have sat here and gone, you know what, whatever, it's the young players, they haven't really had any Premier League experience, they're probably not going to start the first Premier League game of the season, what does it really matter? But it wasn't. It was a side that we saw so consistently last season in the Premier League just got absolutely embarrassed in the first 15 minutes, and it could have just been because the Reds weren't there, it could have just been because they were focusing on other things rather than the result. But for me, if you're playing a game of football, I said it in the instant match reaction, if Everton want to turn around and say, well, it's just about fitness, it's not really about the results, that's absolutely fucking sound. Don't charge people £30 to watch the games. Say, you know what, we're not even going to televise any of the pre-season games, we're not even going to talk about them, we'll give a little report after them, because they are merely just to get fitness up, they are merely just for the players to go out there, run around for 90 minutes and get their levels where they need to be for the start of the Premier League season. Don't charge people £30 and sell it as a pre-season, 3 pre-season games, and watch, Everton back in action, and then say, when we're getting beat 3-0 by a League One opposition in 10 minutes, oh, well, it's only about the fitness. It's not about the fitness, it's about the result. Every time a single player puts an Everton shirt on, it's about them going out and giving it 110%. I don't give a fuck if they're playing in a pre-season game against Blackpool, if they're playing in a pre-season game against my Sunday League side, or if they're playing in an FA Cup final against Manchester United. I don't care what game you are playing in. If you are put that Everton shirt on, if you are wearing those royal blue colours, you are giving it 110%, and it's never, ever, ever just about the fitness. It's about the result, and it's about, trying your absolute hardest. I think some of these players seem to have forgot that they're playing for their place in the team. Now, you'd think that a Tom Davis or an Alex Iwobi, having listening to all of these links of all of these players that we're getting linked to and that could possibly come in, you'd think that they'd step their game up a little bit and have a go a little bit more and try and create something, but they don't. They didn't, and again, I don't know. We'll talk about Gylfi Sigurdsson in a second, because he had some interesting comments to make after the game and after his performance, and I want to highlight them and have a little bit of discussion, and then we'll go on to talking about Allan and a little bit of a transfer update on his situation. Let's get into the live comments then. Let's see what everybody has to say. Big thanks to everybody for joining us live. 57 people currently watching. Really do appreciate it. Listen, if you're enjoying the live stream, please do hit that like button. It does only take a second. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe as well. We'll be live on Wednesday and Friday this week. We'll be doing the Talking Rubbish transfer show on Wednesday, so if you're coming here expecting loads of rumours and loads of discussion, that will be on Wednesday. We are going to talk about Allan in today's live stream as well, so stick around for that one. Sport Watcher says, hey mate, what's up? Hi mate, I hope you're doing well. He also says, hey, Allan isn't signed until September the 1st for some reason. Well, it's interesting because there's been a lot of in the know sources, and you've got to be careful when reading in the know, and I know a lot of people will just totally switch off whenever they hear that phrase or they hear that, you know, saying, or they see ITK on a tweet. But there's been a couple of them today that have gone with the same sort of narrative as that. Doucoure is now being the Doucoure deal is now being put in front of the Allan situation, and I was thinking that doesn't make much sense because, you know, in everything that I've seen over the last couple of weeks or so, all of it is directing towards the fact that Allan is pretty much nailed on. The player wants to come. He's turned down some of the top football clubs in Europe to come to Everton Football Club. It's just about agreeing that deal with Napoli, whereas the situation with Doucoure is a little bit different. Yes, okay, the player still wants to come, but it seemed like it seemed like a baby stages for the Doucoure deal. Now, obviously, seeing that some people are coming out, and again, I don't believe any of this in the know stuff. It's so easy to say, I've got an uncle whose dogs, cats, uncles, you know, granddad once put the cones out of Finch Farm 40 years ago, and he's heard that the Doucoure deal's been put in front of the Allan deal. I don't believe them whatsoever, but what I thought was interesting was to see everybody go with the narrative of that the Doucoure deal's been put in front, and then see this information about, you know, players that are coming in from you know, countries that are on the quarantine list will have to quarantine under no exemptions. So again, it was interesting. Look, I think Allan will be an Everton player. I don't necessarily think the deal's as far along as some are stating. He has gone on pre-season tour with Napoli today, and granted, he's only gone, you know, less than 100 miles away in Italy to play a couple of games with Napoli, and it means very, very little. That's just an indication as to say that the deal isn't as far ahead as some people are suggesting. Otherwise, why would he be going on Napoli's pre-season tour? But I think he'll be in before September the 1st, and I do think he'll be an Everton player before the end of this transfer window. Crip says, yo dude, how did you like the Blackpool match? No, I didn't, mate. I didn't like it. Look, again, you know, we can sit here and talk about how it was about fitness and getting the fitness up, and players just getting out there and playing another 90 minutes, but we shouldn't really be in that situation. These players should have come into that game on Saturday fit as fuck, because it's only been 2 or 3 weeks ago since they played the Premier League game, and I understand that they'll have a little bit of a holiday and they've had a little bit of a rest, and that's completely fair enough, but they still should have been coming into this game fit enough to go out there and put in a decent performance. And you know, ultimately, although we come back into it and we consoled large parts of it, I wouldn't say it was a decent performance. William says, hey, how's everybody doing? I'm not too bad, mate. How are you doing yourself? CG says, Brands has to go. He's good at persuading players to come and money, but useless and getting that far. Fair enough. Jason says, evening, mate. Hope you're doing well. Richarlison Andrade says, apparently Allan has told Napoli will force a move. There's a medical at Everton this week. Well, again, that's another in the know has come out and said that there's been a medical booked in for Everton Football Club. We don't know who it'll be, whether it be Allan, whether it be Doucoure, but there has been a medical booked in. Again, we don't know that to be true. That could just be somebody making something up, but be interesting to see if that is the case. I think Allan will be an Everton player, like I mentioned as well. Whammy says, next Tuesday is Blackburn. It certainly is. But says, wouldn't mind Lossell playing number 1. Well, again, look, he didn't concede, did he? On Saturday, he didn't have much to do, to be fair to him, but he didn't concede. When he says Allan is done, Sport Butcher says John Joe Kenny was bad. I didn't think he done too bad, to be honest with you. Again, he didn't have an awful lot to do, but I don't think he was in the game, to be honest. And Ananda says the terrifying thing is that this team could also be the same team that starts the beginning of the season, with the exception of like 2 or 3. Exactly. And that's the thing that worried me the most, is that you're absolutely spot on. The side that started on Saturday could very, very easily, all of them, you know, even with Branthwaite, with Gordon, with Kenny, if we don't bring in a right-back replacement, that side could be the side that plays the first 2 or 3 weeks of the season. And if it is, then I'm worried. I really, really am. Anyway, going back onto the game then, Gylfi Sigurdsson had some interesting comments to say after the full-time whistle. I think on Sunday the interview got released. He'd obviously spoken after the game. He'd spoken after his 2 goals and 1 assist. And he spoke about Carlo Ancelotti and a new sort of position that he's being given on the pitch. He actually said, the gaffer has been happy with me. Obviously in a completely different role. I don't follow the news. If he's happy, then I must be doing something right. If he's not happy with me, then I've got to train harder and do what he wants. That's about it. He was then asked about his positional sense and the sort of new position that he's being given on the pitch, and he said, on positioning, sometimes I just want to get in the box, but makes or someone will be saying stay. I'm more comfortable playing there now, but it's completely different. So again, Gylfi Sigurdsson sort of come out there after after the game and after his 2 goals and assist, and okay, granted he had a decent game, he had some output, you know, he scored the penalty, he scored a really good free kick, he put in a good cross. Other than that, he didn't really do much, but you can't sit here and say, other than 2 goals and an assist in a game that we scored 3 goals in, a player was shite, because that would be unfair. But obviously, listen, he's coming out there, and I thought those comments were really interesting, and comments that sort of confused a lot of Evertonians, I feel like, because, you know, a lot of Evertonians, and we're all watching Gylfi Sigurdsson sort of week in, week out, and we're seeing him standing around, and we're seeing him pointing, and we're seeing him go 19 minutes without touching the ball, and we're seeing him not getting forward and not creating. And I think we're all of the same opinion that if Gylfi Sigurdsson isn't creating opportunities, if Gylfi Sigurdsson isn't hitting one from 35 yards and it's going top corner, then what does he really do? Because he's not quick in the midfield, he hasn't got the stamina, he doesn't throw a tackle in very often, he's not good defensively. So in that central midfield role that you've got to be quite defensive minded, he's useless, really is useless, and we're all sort of thinking that. And I think, like I said, it confused a lot of Evertonians when that interview come out and it become apparent that Carlo Ancelotti is happy with Gylfi Sigurdsson in that position. Now again, this could just be Carlo saying to Gylfi Sigurdsson, yeah, I'm happy with you, you're doing alright, whilst in the back of his mind he's thinking, you're not good enough to play that position, so I'm going to bring in an Allan, or I'm going to bring in a Doucoure. Obviously, look, Everton are after 2 centre midfielders. It's become quite clear that we're after Allan and we're after Doucoure, and if we bring both of those players in, and Carlo Ancelotti sticks with the 4-4-2 for the majority of next season, then I really don't see where Gylfi Sigurdsson fits into this side, unless he's playing as a second striker, unless the formation is being changed so a number 10 is allowed into it. I don't see where Gylfi Sigurdsson starts. So it's all well and good Sigurdsson coming out and saying Carlo Ancelotti's happy with him and he's happy in his new position and he would like to get forward a lot more, but ultimately what we know as a matter of fact is that Everton are interested in 2 centre midfielders, and we currently play with a formation that only allows 2 centre midfielders. And why would we pay 30 or 25, 30 odd million pound for a player that's just going to come in and sit on the bench behind Gylfi Sigurdsson? It makes no sense. So again, I wouldn't be too upset with the comments, I wouldn't be too worried by the comments, because it's clear that Everton are after 2 midfield players that play in that same position as Gylfi Sigurdsson does, and if they do come in, then he's probably not going to be in the side. It could just be a case of Carlo Ancelotti saying, yeah, you're doing well, keep your head up, you know, growing confidence, basically, because he's not going to come out and say, no, you've been shite, but I've got nobody else to play, so you're playing there, is he? Let's be honest, he's not going to say that. I'm sure if you asked Carlo Ancelotti about Jordan Pickford, he'd probably say a lot of positive things about him, because again, he's not the manager. He's not the type of manager to come out and say, oh no, he's absolutely shite, but I've got to play him because I've got nobody else to play in that position, because that would just completely knock the lad's confidence. It would knock the team morale yards and yards, and it would just ruin the whole atmosphere. And Carlo Ancelotti, like I said, he isn't the man to come out and do that. He's not going to string a player out like that, certainly not to the media. I think Carlo Ancelotti's stance on Gylfi Sigurdsson is very evident by our transfer business, and that is the fact that he's come out multiple times and said we desperately need a centre midfielder, and we're in the market for 2 centre midfielders now. So again, unless Carlo's got a new position ready for Gylfi Sigurdsson at right back or centre forward or somewhere, I don't know, but unless he's wanting to play him in somewhere else on the pitch, if he's going to be continue as a centre midfielder and we're going to bring 2 centre midfielders in, he's not going to start week in, week out, is he? Let's be perfectly honest. But listen, they were interested, and like I said, I don't want to go too much into Gylfi Sigurdsson in this video, because in this live stream, because he scored 2 goals and he got an assist. He kept us in the game. I said it on the instant match reaction. Gylfi Sigurdsson's free kick kept us in that game, otherwise we'd have pretty much been embarrassed and beaten by a League One opposition, with 2 weeks to go to the Premier League season. Now, okay, I understand people saying, well, it's against the League One side and he doesn't do it in the Premier League. I get that, and I think Carlo Ancelotti gets that, and that's why we're in the market for 2 centre midfielders. I would be massively worried if Carlo Ancelotti come out and said those comments, or Gylfi come out and said those comments about Ancelotti and about how he's happy with him, and then Ancelotti come out and said, yeah, I'm dead happy with him and we're not going to sign a centre midfielder. That's when I'd be going, hang on, are you watching every other part of his game? The fact that he can't defend, the fact that he doesn't get about the pitch, the fact that he's scared shitless to throw a tackle in, the fact that he's only scored 1 free kick in an Everton shirt, so he doesn't do that often. He doesn't, he's not great at penalties. He doesn't get about the pitch as much. Are you watching the same football as we're watching? But the fact that Carlo Ancelotti is still in the market for 2 centre midfielders, it pretty much states is viewing on the club currently and where we need to strengthen, and that is in the position that Gylfi Sigurdsson plays. So I wouldn't be too concerned about that. Now on the centre midfield, of course, we will get back into the live comments in just a second. Big thanks to everybody for watching. 76 people currently watching. If you could share the stream, if you could give it a like, it would mean a massive amount to me. If we can try and get as many people in here as possible, it would mean an absolute massive amount to me. 32 likes, if we can get to 40 likes, it would mean a great deal. But anyway, on to the centre midfield position now. Obviously, it become quite apparent, like I mentioned before, after the Blackpool game, that we're in desperate need of a centre midfielder. The two that we've been linked with very heavily over the last couple of weeks or so, obviously Allan and Abdoulaye Doucoure from Watford. The Doucoure situation has gone a little bit quiet over the last few days or so. Like I said, there's been these in the know that people that are saying that it's nearly done and that there's a fee agreed and that Jared Branthwaite might be going on loan to Watford as part of the deal. But like I said, I'm not really focusing on them because I don't really believe entirely what they have to say, just purely because I'm not saying that they're lying, but I'm saying it can be so fabricated so easily, so I'm not getting tangled in this in the know sort of crap, because it just could be faked very easily. Not saying that they're not telling the truth, not saying that they're chatting shit, but I'm saying there's a lot of possibility that could be the case. So I'm not really getting into that, but what I do know is that through reliable journalists and Fabrizio Romano, Everton are very interested in Napoli midfielder Allan, and I've said it before and I'll say it again. I said it last week, I'll say it again now. I do think that Allan will be an Everton player before the end of this transfer window. Do I think Allan will be an Everton player before we play Blackburn on Tuesday? I'm not convinced. Do I think Allan will be an Everton player before we play Preston in the final pre-season game of the season? I'm not convinced. Do I think Allan will be an Everton player before we play the first Premier League game of the season? I'm not convinced. But I do think he'll be an Everton player before the end of this transfer window. I just do. Now, I've had a little bit of an update on Allan over the last sort of 24 hours or so. It's been today, really. Now, there's been a lot of sources, certainly this morning and going into this afternoon, that were very adamant that Allan's deal and Allan's move to Everton Football Club was pretty much nailed on. There were sources, Gazzetta dello Sport, who said that it's done now, the deal's done, there's no going back, there's no doubt about it. Allan will become an Everton player. There was other journalists in and around Europe and in and around the world that were saying, again, pretty much similar as Gazzetta dello Sport, if the deal is done, Allan will become an Everton player, Allan will sign for Everton Football Club. Sport Witness come out and said that Allan has pretty much packed a suitcase. I think their quote was, suitcase in hand, next stop Liverpool, meaning Liverpool Airport, of course, to sign for Everton Football Club. And that was all very interesting, and that was all obviously worth getting excited about and worth noting. And I even put a tweet out earlier on today as to say that, will this be the week that Allan becomes an Everton player? And then all of a sudden, Napoli confirmed their list of players that will be joining, that will be going on their sort of pre-season tour, if you like. I think they called it a retreat, and Allan was part of that. Now, don't get me wrong, this didn't massively worry me. I put a tweet out after it and said, do I think Allan will still sign for Everton? Yes. Do I think it's as far ahead as some sources are saying? No. Because it's not massively worrying. Allan is contracted to Napoli. Napoli are going on a pre-season tour. Allan is going with Napoli because he's currently contracted to them. Does it mean that he can't sign for Everton on that tour? No. Does it mean that he can't come back from that tour early to come and fly over and sign for Everton? No. Does it really mean anything in the grand scheme of things? Not really. He's going 80 miles north or wherever they're going in Italy to play a couple of pre-season games before the start of the Serie A season. He could leave that pre-season tour early. He could sign for Everton whilst on the tour and then fly over after it and you know, be a Finch farm at that point. Anything can happen in football in this day and age. You know, a player and an agent and a player of the football and a member of staff of the football club they're signing for, they don't all have to be in the same room at one time. They don't. It can be done over the internet. It can be done by a contract being printed. It can be done in various different manners. So, am I concerned that Allan is part of Napoli's pre-season arrangements for the upcoming days and weeks? No. Do I think it has any sort of hindrance on whether he'll sign for Everton Football Club or not? No. Do I think it's as close as that his suitcase is packed and that he's in the airport now, buying a bag of M&Ms from WH Smith, sitting down, having a Burger King, ready to come on the plane and fly into Liverpool. No. And that's the key thing here. Fabrizio Romano was asked last night on an Instagram comment, I believe, what the situation was with Allan and Everton Football Club, and he said that the talks are still ongoing. Now, Fabrizio Romano said last Monday that Everton have reopened talks with Napoli for midfielder Allan. He also stated that we'd open talks with Watford for midfielder Doucoure. Now, again, that was the sort of reliable, solid information that we wanted, and that was the reliable, solid information that we stuck by, and I'm still sticking by that. I think that Everton are in talks with Allan. I think the player wants to come. I think the player has turned down some top clubs to come to us, and I think it's just a matter of time between Everton and Napoli agreeing that deal. And Everton and Napoli might have agreed a deal over the phone. They might have agreed a verbal deal of, 35 million signed, let's get it done. Allan can go with you. He can have a few pre-season games and then he can come and sign for Everton. And that might be all it is. Everton might have turned around. Carlo Ancelotti might have turned around and gone, well, we've already played one of our pre-season games. The next one's on Tuesday. He's very unlikely to be able to come over, sign his contract, settle in, have a couple of training sessions and be fit enough in time to play on Tuesday against Blackburn. He may make the game against Preston on Saturday, but whilst you're going on your pre-season tour today, he may as well go with you. Let him go with you, let him play some games, let him have some training sessions, and then he can come and sign for us. That might be the situation. Do I think he's at the airport now with the suitcase in hand, Liverpool bound, like some journalists and some sources are saying? No. Does it have any difference on whether he'll sign for Everton? Not really, no. Because he's a player contacted to a club and he's going on a pre-season tour with that club. And I've seen a lot of outbursts when it was announced, and I've seen a lot of fans saying, that's it, it's done now, he's not signing, it's over with. Another one was thrown out the bag. I don't think it's that serious whatsoever. I don't. I think it's just a matter of again, like I said, we haven't got the deal completely sewn up yet. He's still contacted to Napoli, so he's going on a pre-season tour with Napoli. That's it. Do we need to bring him in as soon as possible? Absolutely. Do we need to get that deal over the line? Absolutely. Is there much in the fact that he's going on a pre-season tour with Napoli? Not really. So I wouldn't be too worried about that one. But that is pretty much the Allan update again. Journalists and publications here and there saying that the deal is done and it's solid and it's confirmed and there's no doubt about it now, and there mightn't be any doubt about it, but one thing we know for absolute certain is that Allan will be going on Napoli's pre-season tour over the next couple of days or so. I think they actually left today. Does that mean that he can't sign for Everton? No. Does that mean that he won't sign for Everton? No. But what it does mean is that he's certainly not on a flight on the way to Liverpool to sign that contract. 100 people currently watching. A massive thank you to everybody for all of your support. I really do appreciate it. If we can get to 50 likes, we're on 45 now before the end of the season. It would mean a massive amount to me. We are going to get in the live comments in a second. We'll get involved with them. If you're watching live, please do hit the like button. Get your thoughts in the live comments. Share the video. Let's get as many people in here as possible. Let's get as many people involved as possible. Wayne says no, next week is the first week of September. There you go. Carl says I'll play Gordon over Iwobi and Bernard. As would I, mate. As would I. Jason says Lossell, I agree. He was fairly decent at Huddersfield. He done okay. Eugene says Kenny opens up on teammate inspiration and learning under Ancelotti. Sport says who is worse between Mo Besic and Tom Davis? It's a hard one. Again, they're both not good enough, are they? Let's leave it there. They're both not good enough. Dosby says, hey everybody, I'm not late this time. Hope you're well. I mate, hope you're well. Thanks very much for getting involved. Whammy says, we know that the team is garbage, guys. Well, the midfield is nothing changes till the transfers arrive, but looks likely that Allan deal is done. Hopefully, mate. Hopefully, like I said, I'm not 100% convinced that it's absolutely done and dusted. Do we think he'll sign for Everton? Yes, but I still think there's a couple of bits and bobs that need to be sorted before that one is confirmed and announced. Cal says pre-season doesn't matter. Liverpool drew to Tranmere last season after going 3-0 up. It doesn't. Ultimately, it doesn't matter until you start getting beat in the Premier League, and then you can say, well, hang on, we should have probably been warned with this performance in pre-season or that performance in pre-season. But if we go and win our first 5 games of the season, then I'm really not asked about the result against Blackpool. Sport Budget says it will be a shite as usual. Don't mind us keeping Balassi if we don't sign a winger. I'm not too convinced on Balassi either, to be honest with you. He tries his hardest, but I just don't know whether he's good enough. Sam says, running out of patience with Brands at the moment, can really see some tension between him and Carlo. I think that's just paper talk, mate, to be honest with you. There was an article released by the Daily Mail as to state that Carlo Ancelotti could walk because he's not happy with Everton's transfer business so far. I think it's just bullshit. I think it's just typical paper talk and journalists trying to sell papers and just chat absolute shit to try and get as many people to click on their articles as possible. Stephen says, we get 40 points. Carl says it's not FIFA. Most teams will wait 2 weeks because of COVID. William says, I had to judge Bessage on that game. By the time they all came on, I was playing guess the formation and never figured it out, and I'm still trying. A bit harsh, though, to be fair. I think Balassi proved you can want what you like, but that doesn't make you good enough. Spot on, mate, spot on. Peter says, until we get some pace into our midfield, then we're struggling again. I agree. Sportbot says, thought Niels and Conku was better than Dean. He done well, mate. He done well. He did do well when he come on. I was really, really impressed with him. Whammy says he looked interested going forward. I agree. Whammy says, hit the like, guys. Thank you very much. 55 likes. Really, really appreciate it. Sportbot says, I feel sorry for the Everton social media admin. Sam says, was really impressed by Balassi when he came on, to be fair. To think he is better than Iwobi for that left side. Well, he probably is, but there's probably a lot of players in football that are better than Iwobi. Doesn't mean that, you know, they're good enough for Everton Football Club, does it? Where are we? But just people just saying shite to him as if he has Marcel Brands. Peter says, Bessage, Davis, Sigurdsson couldn't hack it against League One opposition. It's hard to argue with that. William says, don't know if that's good for Balassi or terrible for the rest of them. Donny says, Mo was the only player who screened the back forward. Not saying he was the be-all and end-all, but he was the only one who understood that role. Fair enough. William says, I think Mo could have a purpose. He is more defensive-minded midfielder who likes to get a tackle in. He could be the backup for Allan, potentially. Crib says none of them names are good enough. Jeff says, afternoon, people. Afternoon, Jeff. I hope you're well. Sportwatch says, good thing I just watched the match on the site. Can't waste my money. Give Sigurdsson and Davis as a salary. And Serge says, Carlo said he wanted to do the business done before the season starts, and yet again, it won't happen. Hugely detrimental to the season, them not having any time to settle down. Same every year. Fair point, fair point. And Wimmy says, what a shout by Cam. They want to pretend it matters when they take your dosh, and then they perform like dogs. It's just not good enough. He also mentions Liverpool's friendly about them beating Stuttgart. Well, there you go. And look, like I said it before, and I'll say it again. I don't care if it's a friendly. I don't care if it's an FA Cup game. I don't care if it's a Carabao Cup game. I don't care if it's a Premier League game. If you put that royal blue shirt on and you wear that badge on your fucking chest, then you give it 110%. And if you don't want to give it 110% because you think it's a pre-season game or you just want to be out there for fitness, then see you later, mate. Anyway, on to the discussion of transfers and Allan and why we've waited so long for transfers. It was an interesting stat put out there today. It was actually put on the Amazon Prime official sports Twitter account, and I just thought it was quite interesting, so I thought I'd read it out for you. I think we all knew that figures like this were of concern, and that figures like this were existent, and they said biggest net spend amongst current Premier League clubs across the last 5 years. And we know that net spend is a load of shit, and that, you know, whatever you spend and you know, net spend doesn't include salaries and bonuses and all of that sort of shit, but it is still worth noting and it's still worth reading this stat. So, biggest transfer net spend amongst current Premier League clubs across the last 5 years. Number 1 is Manchester City, 506 million. Number 2 is Manchester United, 379 million. And number 3 is Everton, 275 million. Arsenal are 4th with 249, and then even more shockingly than Everton, really, Aston Villa 198 million 5th, and Brighton 197 million 6th. But Everton noticeably there are 3rd with 275 million pound. Now that stat is a little bit screwed and obviously doesn't include wages and all of that, and Liverpool aren't even in the top 10, so it's very clear that they've done that to try and make Liverpool look absolutely fantastic. But nevertheless, regardless of whether it be net spend, regardless of whether it be spend, including wages, salary, that is quite shocking, really. And we all knew that. We all knew Everton have spent too much money on shite players, and we've spent far too much money on salaries of players that aren't good enough and transfer fees of players that aren't good enough. But when you actually see it, and you see that over the last 5 years, Everton are the 3rd highest net spenders in transfer fees behind a team that win the league near enough every year in Manchester City. And okay, aside in Manchester United, who haven't been great either, but they're still finishing in European positions consistently. We're third, and we finished 12th last season, and we've got Tom Davies and Sigurdsson playing in our centre of midfield. It's sickening. It really, really is sickening. And it's sort of, for me anyway, again, some of you might be sitting there and saying, it doesn't matter, we still need to go out and improve, so we still need to go out and spend money. But when I read that on the bus on the way home, literally about an hour and a half ago, and it sort of made me sit back and go, this makes a lot of sense as to why Everton aren't just throwing money around. Now, on one hand, it makes sense. On another hand, why we've thrown money around over the last few years or so is beyond me. Why we spent £30 odd million on Alex Iwobi if he can only play in one position is beyond me. Why we spent, £30 odd million on Moise Keane if he's not ready to go now. I get, he's a player for the future and he's got a lot of potential, but again, it was probably money that could have been spent better elsewhere. But regardless of who we've spent it on and where we've spent it and the wages, etc., the fact that we finished 12th last season and we're still in need of, for me, 150, 200 million pounds worth of investment, and we've already spent the third highest amount on transfer net spend, is quite concerning. And it does sort of make you sit back and go, well, maybe that's why Carlo Ancelotti and Marcel Brands aren't just lashing hundreds of millions of pounds at players left, right and centre. Maybe that's why we had a little bit of an argument with Lille over Gabriel. Maybe that's why we didn't want to spend the extra £5 or £10 million, because ultimately, when looking at financial fair play, we are on absolute strings with financial fair play because of the money that we've wasted. And I'm not going to sit here and dig players out, but I don't have to say the names. You can probably all sit there, whether you're watching live, whether you're watching as a YouTube video, you're probably all sitting there thinking of 5 or 6 names straight off the top of your mind who have been an absolute waste of money and an absolute waste of space in regards to wages and money that we've spent. So I don't need to sit here and go through them all, but when it's put on a piece of paper, when it's put in front of you, when it's put in stat form and you read it, you sort of do sit back and go, maybe that's why we aren't just lashing silly amounts of money at players for the sake of it. Maybe that's why we're a little bit more reserved in this transfer window. And the fact that we've spent 275 million and we still are a side that struggled against the League One side in a pre-season friendly is atrocious, really. It really, really is utterly atrocious, and that's worrying in itself. But again, I thought I'd put it out there because there's been a lot of talk about Everton just spending that extra 5 million, or just give them what they want, or, why are we badging over 10 million? Why are we badging over 15 million? That's why, because of the amount of money that we've wasted in recent years. And it'd be absolutely brilliant if somebody had come in for these fringe players that aren't good enough. It'd be absolutely brilliant if, we'd be able to sell your Sandros, your Yannick Balassis, your Sigurdssons, your Walcott, your Tossins, your players that have got little to no future at the football club. It'd be brilliant if we could just go, yeah, you know what, we're going to sell all of those players and we're going to invest this money into the squad. But in order to sell those players, we need teams that want to come in and buy them. And at the moment, currently, nobody wants to come in and buy those players, clearly, because we haven't managed to sell them yet. So we're going to struggle. We are going to struggle, and that just proves that we're going to struggle this summer. And hopefully we can get Doucoure over the line. Hopefully we can get Allan over the line, because they're desperately, desperately needed. I want to talk about a couple of young players before we end the scene, but we will get into the live comments before we end it up. Where were we in the comment section? We've got loads and loads of comments there. Big thanks to everybody for getting involved. I really, really do appreciate it. I've completely lost where we're up to. 107 people currently watching live. Thank you all so much. If you're enjoying, please do hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the stream if you're new as well. It only takes a second. It's free to do as well. We've got content coming all the way through this week. We'll be live again on Wednesday, 5:15. We'll be talking more transfer information. We'll then be live on Friday. We've got a video coming out over the next couple of days about fans returning to stadiums and how that could look. We'll give you all of the latest and breaking information when it happens, whether it be regarding Allan, whether it be regarding Doucoure. We'll have the information, we'll have the videos out, we'll have the content out on the channel. So please do subscribe if you haven't already. Big thanks to everybody for watching live. Big thanks to everybody for getting involved in the live comments as per usual. Spudbot says, sorry, we read that one out. We read that one out. Sage says, yeah, but the players aren't fighting for their place. They know full well we can't afford a lot, and 98% of them will stay and play regularly next season. You're spot on, mate. You're absolutely spot on. Sportbutch says, hey, Sandro Ramirez is playing Fortnite with Ozil. Keep him there, mate. Let him play Fortnite with Ozil all he likes. As long as he's nowhere near Goodison Park, I'm not arsed. Ewan says, it is Chelsea defender Tomori who Everton are after. Yeah, I've heard that rumour again. Look, It all depends on where Carlo Ancelotti and Marcel Brand see the future of Jarrett Branthwaite and Lewis Gibson for me, because both players have shown that they've got good qualities. Both players have shown, certainly Jarrett Branthwaite, that he can play in the Premier League. Lewis Gibson that obviously hasn't played in the Premier League yet, but looked really, really solid, looked really composed on Saturday. Granted, it was against the League One opposition, and I understand that, but in regards to just his demeanour and his confidence on the ball, he looked good. Crip says, Allan is far more important. If we only got Doucoure, who would play as a holding midfielder? Gbamin, well, not Gbamin, because he's still injured, of course. Wim says, still banging on about Doucoure. I think if we get Doucoure, it'll be disappointing. I hope I'm wrong. Corey, what's happening, mate? He says, what do you think about the article saying Carlo is frustrated with the lack of activity and might walk away should he not get the signings he wants? I think they're bullshit, mate. I think they're absolute bullshit, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. I think Carlo Ancelotti is frustrated at the lack of players? Probably yes. Players coming in? Probably yes. Do I think he's blaming Marcel Brands and the club for that? No, I think he's probably frustrated that in his first season as Everton manager, in his first full season, in his first full transfer market, there's been a global pandemic that's thrown a massive spanner in the works. Will he walk away from the job? Absolutely not. It's just typical newspapers sprouting absolute shite to try and get clicks, isn't it? Wimmy says, who is this Gbamin you speak of? Dave says, Allgate for captain for sure, lads, got grit. I agree, mate. Stephen Smith says, same old paper talk. Let's see how it comes in the next 4 weeks. I agree. Wimmy says, I think with stats in it, Gylfi got 2 goals and an assist, but the assist was off a corner. He didn't win a penalty. He didn't win then a penalty that he didn't win, then a free kick, I guess, what he didn't win in a third line. Again, I don't want to go too far into him because he buried the penalty, he buried the free kick, and he got the assist for the first goal. So again, I don't want to go on too much of the Gylfi Sigurdsson agenda, and everybody knows, if you watch these videos, if you watch these live streams frequently, you'll know that I really, really aren't a fan of Gylfi Sigurdsson, and I really, really don't think he's good enough. Liam says, Cam, do you reckon we'll have Allan in by this week? Sorry if you've already spoke on that, mate. Bit late today, not long finished work. No worries, mate. Thanks for joining us. I'm not confident that he'll be an Everton player by the end of this week. I'm confident that he'll be an Everton player by the end of the transfer window, but I can't really put a date on it, to be honest with you, mate, because again, I just, you never know with Everton Football Club, do you? Wim says, was comical, that free kick. Philip says, it's the shop. Gylfi, Carlo just trying to get some sort of fee, potentially. Stephen says, how do you lose fitness in 3 weeks? Sorry, it's just an excuse for rubbish. I agree, I'm 100% with you, mate. Semi says, yes, mate, the live team, what's up, Cam? Hi, mate, thanks very much for getting involved. I'm not too bad, I hope you're doing well. Silgy says, hello, mate. Semi says, agree, mate, that performance was a mirage. We all know what the real Sigurdsson is. Well, it was against the League One opposition, so, you know, it's all good doing it there, doing it in a Premier League game. Ollie says, when's Richarlison back in training? I'm assuming it's this week, mate. Sonny says, the Doucoure rumours have dried up. They have, but that could mean that he's on his way. That could mean that, because they've dried up, it's sort of an easy run rather than all of this drama, which typically allows for news publications to get involved. Wimmy says, think we need a winger pretty bad when Balassi the postman makes all the wingers look shit. And Anders says, the fact that Sigurdsson said in an interview probably means that he knows he's not good enough and not in the plan. Super defensive interview and a justification of shite performances. Very, very fair point again. I stick with it. I read the article, I read the interview, and I tweeted it out, and I thought, I'm not surprised, because Carlo Ancelotti, you could put Umar Niasse in front of Carlo Ancelotti and say, what do you think of this player? He's not going to come out and say he's fucking dead for him. He'd probably come out and say he's got no future at the football club, but he wouldn't come out and rip him to bits. So the fact that Gylfi Sigurdsson saying that Ancelotti's happy with his performances is all well and good, sound, yeah, boss, made up, yeah, well done, lad. The fact that Everton are in the market for 2 centre midfielders really, really does speak about how happy Carlo Ancelotti is with Gylfi Sigurdsson's performances. Clip says, I agree, Stephen Davis, you're not professional if you manage to lose your fitness in 2-3 weeks, spot on. Sonny says, I expect Allan to sign at any point from now. The UEFA Champions League is over, no point announcing a player during an elite European competition. Potentially, Reece says, sorry, I'm late being on a lovely walk in Wales. No worries, mate, no need to apologise. Say says, I'm 100% sure Allan will come to us, but the fact that Ancelotti said he wanted everything done before the season starts, it's not going to happen. Even Wolves with financial fair play and making moves. Yeah, again, it's frustrating. It is frustrating. I dare say there's a lot of reasons for it. That then figures being one of them that I've just mentioned before, but it is frustrating at 100%. Tom says, financial fair... for fuck's sake, just get Allan and Doucoure in, never mind financial fair play. Ruben says, should we start pursuing a goalkeeper? Not at the moment, mate. There's... Again, once we get the midfield sorted, and I think wingers and a right back are probably more of a concern at the moment. Nanda says, congratulations on the huge numbers. You're making amazing content. Keep up the great work, mate. And hit that like button. Thank you very much. Really, really do appreciate it. Listen, to 100 people watching live, honestly, it means an absolute massive amount to me. Thank you all so much. 60 likes as well. If you could hit the like button if you're new, it means a massive amount to me. Subscribe to the channel as well. We'll be back on Wednesday, 5:15, of course. Adam says, Holgate actually gets us forward. He does. Gary says, is there a problem between Ancelotti and the Napoli president? Not that I know of, mate. Raj says, the name Allan has ever been present in all Everton channels since Ancelotti arrived. Damn, he better be good, this lad. Let's hope so, mate. He is good, he is good. Luke says, Bolasie still decent, but we need to look for wingers. And Tuthi says, has Carlo ever quit a managerial job due to disagreements with the ownership or the staff? No, and he won't quit this one either. It's just complete and utter bollocks paper talk, mate. But again, you know, it's easy clicks, isn't it? For these publications, it's easy clicks. Anyway, we'll get into the live comments in just a second as well. We're going to finish up in a minute. I want to talk about two young players that we saw on Saturday that really impressed me. Lewis Gibson and Niles Nkunku. Lewis Gibson obviously playing at centre-half, and Nkunku coming on and playing at a left-back. Both really impressed me. Lewis Gibson a little bit more. I think he looked a little bit more composed on the ball than Nkunku did. I think he looked a little bit more confident. I think he looked like a player that sort of almost had the feeling that he'd been playing alongside these players for quite some time, and that he'd been playing, you know, with Premier League players for a long time. And Nkunku done well. He got forward. He looked confident. He looked assured. You know, he even had a shot at one point, which, okay, he blasted about 45 yards over the bar, but he still had the shot. But I was more impressed with Lewis Gibson. I really was. I thought he looked really solid. A player with a massive future ahead of him, and definitely a player that I'll be keeping a strong eye out on the next couple of pre-season games, and hopefully he can have some involvement in the Premier League season next season. But both players really impressed me. Let me know your thoughts on those players in the comment section down below. Again, I'd really like to see Lewis Gibson in the team going forward, and then Nkunku looks like, if not this season, next season he'll be you know, really definitely good enough to be a backup left back for Luca Dean. Count as any updates on Allan? We just talked about it, mate. Reece says Alphonso Davies or Luca Dean. I'd probably go with Davies, to be honest with you, but I'd stick with Luca Dean because I'm an Everton fan. Chen says, which wingers would you prefer, Lozano under Bailey, considering how much they cost in time, and Bailey made me not spending anywhere else? If that's the case, then Lozano, mate, over the two of them. Sonny says Dean for me. Tuesday says I get Lozano on loan. Richie Trad says, although he has improved, which everyone would stop banging on about Holgate, give him the captaincy to Allan as soon as he's in. Fair point, mate. Reece says take under all day top player. Tuesday says we should focus on at least two midfielders who come in and play right away, and an experienced keeper who could put Pickford's arse on the bench. Gareth says even Carlito is going to find out it's impossible to make a pace from this Sozier of a squad. I've been supporting Everton for 38 years, and I honestly can't recall being as concerned as I am now. Worrying. Philip says exactly, Cam, financial fair play will kill us. I agree. Seb says Blackpool fan, what's happening, mate? Semi says it's nothing to spending, it's poor scouting that wasted money spent on unworthy players. You can't disagree with that. Reece says, would anyone take Vlasic back? No. Been there and done that, boat sailed. Semi says, if we brought, say, Bruno Fernandes, who transformed Manchester United, we need game change. We do. Ollie says, why isn't Richarlison insane? Probably just being given a little bit extra time off because he's miles better than everybody else. Still says, we're in a sell to buy situation with financial fair play. The reason Allan isn't a done deal because we simply can't yet. We can't get rid. We aren't signing anyone. Don't know who's going to be dumb enough to spy our shit. Well, that's fair enough, mate. Stephen says, don't want this Chelsea lad. Nurture their talent when we have our own talent. Fair enough. Reece says Allan is the one we need. I agree. Tuthi says HITC Sports just did a video stating starting 11s in the Premier League that cost more than the starting 11 of Bayern Munich. Bayern £90 million, Everton £252 million. There's the worry, mate. That is a big worry. Greg says hands off Grealish. Aston Villa fan. I don't think we'll be signing Grealish, mate, although I'd love to. Henry says you're spot on there. Both Gibson and Branthwaite can both play in the Premier League. We aren't buying anyone unless we get rid of someone. Fair point. Thanks for the game with me. Steve said we need a leader, a horrible, nasty leader. You're spot on. Sophie Gold says you could turn the channel into something great. Keep up the good work. Thank you very much, mate. Really do appreciate it. It also says keep it interactive with the fans is class. Really do appreciate it, mate. I'm glad you're enjoying the live streams. We do 3 live streams a week every Monday, Wednesday and Friday. We will be live on Wednesday, 5:15. We're going to be talking more transfers, so do get involved if you are free. If you're watching a YouTube video as well, leave your comments in the YouTube comments. I'll be getting involved with as many of them as possible. Greg says you're looking at relegation this year. I don't think we are, mate. I think that's a bit much. Tony says, Lago Haran, Atletico Bilbao keeper linked. Don't know much about him myself, Cam. Neither do I, mate. Neither do I. I'll have to have a little bit of research on him. Uden says, how many players do you think Everton will buy? Will, probably 2 or 3. Should, 4 or 5. Phil Neville is apparently stardust in his feet. We missed him when he didn't play. That's cutting to Steve. Wimmy says, take care, guys. Sonny says, see you, Wimmy. Uden says, see you buying up the toffee. See you on Wednesday. Philip says, it's a shame clubs can't show the games during the lockdown. Is it really with Everton? Is it a shame? Stewie says, alright, Cam, lad. Alright, Stewie, just missed out, but welcome. Thank you very much. Clip says, buying can buy players from Chump Change because they are buying and players want to play there. You're spot on. And Ollie says, who would you want if we don't get Allan or Doucoure? I really want Ibrahim Sangare, but we're not going to sign him. But I am confident that we'll get Allan and Doucoure. Listen, I'm going to do it, certainly Allan, if not both. Listen, I'm going to end the live stream there. If you have enjoyed, please do hit that like button. 141 people currently watching. That is an absolutely unbelievable amount of people. The support means an absolute massive amount to me, honestly. I really, really do appreciate it. Listen, if you haven't subscribed already, please do so. It's free. We upload 4 to 5 times a week. We do 3 live streams a week, instant match reactions, reviews, breaking news. As soon as the news hits, we do a video on it, whether it be a signing, whether it be breaking news regarding the kits, whether it be breaking news regarding the club, anything breaking, we cover almost instantly on the channel. We do all of the post-game coverage, pre-game coverage as well. So if you're new to the channel, please do subscribe. A massive, massive, massive thank you for all of the support on today's live stream. It means a massive amount to me. If you've enjoyed the video, please do hit the like button. Massive thanks to everybody for getting involved in the live comments. I really, really do appreciate it. If you're watching a YouTube video, leave your comments in the comment section down below, and I'll get involved with as many of them as per usual as well. Shocking game on Blackpool. Shocking game at Blackpool on Saturday. But there you go. We move on. We'll be back on Wednesday. Like I mentioned, we're going to be talking more transfers. The Talking Rubbish transfer show does return on Wednesday, 5:15. Hopefully, we've got a little bit more information on Allan, and hopefully we're in a little bit more of a more clear situation. Toothy says, surely Villa will be looking at relegation this year after they turned off goal line technology just before the start of the Sheffield United game. Dosberg says, thanks for the updates, Cam, up the toppies. Thank you very much, Dosberg, for getting involved. Philip puts a little money emoji. Thank you very much, mate. Liam says, cheers, Cam, lad, keep it up. Really do appreciate that, Liam. Thank you very much. Stewie says, see you Wednesday. See you, mate. And Semi says, thanks, Cameron. Take care, mate. Big thanks for watching. If you have enjoyed, please do hit the like button. Share the live stream. Let's get as many people involved as possible. If you're watching as a YouTube video, leave your comments below. Big thanks to everybody for getting involved in the live comments. And we'll see you soon on the Mighty Blues.